Component 8 is about evidence-informed decisions. And for me, the sort of data collection part of PBS is something I really value, strangely enough. But because for me it's about fairness.
Yeah.
I think when someone has behaviours of concern, it can be upsetting, it can be difficult for people around that person, and that may colour how we view and how we interpret what's going on. When we're just collecting data, we're gathering the facts, and we can make decisions based on objective facts as opposed to how we feel things are happening, and I just feel that keeps things fair for people.
Because when there's a lot of emotion around, things can feel bigger than they maybe are. I remember when Lucy was little, thinking that some of the behaviours were happening all day, every day, and they felt like they were to me. But when we started thinking about it, no, it was at specific times in the day.
Definitely. The other thing I've found with the data collection is that just the process of it can feel quite empowering. Sometimes you can feel a bit lost, a bit confused, like where is this coming from? But that process of, say, doing an ABC chart or just shining a light on what's happening and breaking it down, sometimes, you know, a light bulb goes off and you suddenly feel empowered to understand what is the need behind that behaviour. So that process of data collection actually I see as being quite empowering.
So number 9 is high quality care and supportive environments, which is so important, isn't it, Jillian? As we know that our lives are really quite dependent on a lot of different things coming together to help us support our children. And for me, for Lucy, really people around her really understanding that what the messages behind her behaviours is so important. Because if actually people understand that Lucy often gets left out, you know, that's a real driver for her, you know, to be included. Why not? She's often lonely, she's often left out, and bless her, she speaks up about it in ways that people might describe as challenging. And I think, good for you. You know, you shouldn't be left out, you shouldn't be lonely. And actually, if we can create an environment where she's always got someone to talk to, she's always got someone to chat to. When she doesn't want it, she'll make it very clear, she'll go away.
I think something that I've had to really come to terms with recently as well is that actually Evie's 18, I think she'd love to go clubbing, there's opportunities for her, and I'm like, yes, bring it on. But does she want to go clubbing with her mum?
No.
Should she be going clubbing with her mum? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so sometimes actually it's also that it's wonderful when you have people you can trust so that you can take that step back so that actually Evie's life mirrors the life of your average 18-year-old, which is going clubbing with young lasses a similar age and having loads of fun and doing that, not going with your mum lurking in a corner.
So component number 10 is bespoke assessment, and now we really are talking about tier 2 and tier 3 of PBS, whereas components 1 to 9 we could all say is tier 1, which is, you know, where we want most of the support to be. But at times we do need a bespoke assessment for somebody if we really want to understand, you know, what is the function, what is the communicated message, the unmet need behind the behaviour of concern. And that is that needs to be done by somebody who is trained. It might need to be done by a team of people, but it really is that functional assessment. We need to understand this message, and that will need to be done in a systematic and a data-driven way to really get the right information to put the right support in place for the person.
Component 11 is all about multi-component personalised support plans. And I think, again, this has been invaluable for my two. When the children were younger, I think some of the knowledge I just sort of had in my head and we were figuring things out and we were working things through. But behaviour is really complex, and both of my young people are both really complex as well. And I think having that plan where things are communicated really clearly around what sorts of strategies are most useful in different instances, I think is invaluable, so that there's a really consistent, thoughtful and systematic approach. All of the proactive stuff is, of course, hugely important, but then there also needs to be those really carefully considered and planned strategies for when things aren't quite right, and when they're communicating that, you know, they are starting to get distressed or to get agitated. So having a range of different types of strategies within a plan that we've been able to really think about and reflect upon and have some real expertise feeding into that plan, I think makes such a difference.
It will, absolutely. And I'm sure, and it's really important, isn't it, that any of the strategies that are in the plan, even if there are strategies that would be cast as reactive, still adhere to that principle of being non-aversive.
Yes.
You know, we're looking to eliminate restraint, we don't use punishment. All that needs to be really clear within that personalised support plan. So our final component, component 12, is implementation, monitoring and evaluation. And this is referring to the behaviour support plans, because there's no point putting something in place. Firstly, if it's not implemented, it's not carried out. If it's not monitored to see if it's working, if things need to be changed, and it's not evaluated and seeing if it's actually, I guess, changing the person's life, really, because it's all about improving the quality of life of our young people. And there's something about it, Jillian, isn't there, about making sure that whatever is recommended in a behaviour support plan is realistic for a family.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
Will this actually work in my family? It might be the most wonderful suggestion, but if I can't make that work within my situation, then it's not going to work.
I think for me as well, sometimes there's almost a feeling that once a plan has been created, it's job done. And you might even be close to a service at that point. It's as if, well, we've produced the plan, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
But actually it needs to be a working document. If it's going to have any kind of sort of meaningful impact, it needs to be something that's being used day in, day out. You know, looking at those strategies and changing it and updating it, checking that the stuff should be happening, you know, that is happening, that should be happening, but also looking for the outcome, saying, well, actually, how is life for them right now?
PBS is a framework, and it's not an intervention. It's not something you just do at a point when you see behaviours or someone's worried about behaviours of concern. It's something that is actually, it's a lifelong plan. I've always said that we live a PBS life, and I know you say that, you've said that too, haven't you? Once you've put those PBS goggles on, they never come off. And it's a way we're going to live our life. It's a framework. So if there's any plan in place, it will need to be constantly reviewed, because as she grows and develops and changes her mind about things and wants different things, the plan has to reflect that. So yeah, absolutely important. If we don't do that, then we can't say we're doing PBS.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to the end of our 12 key components of PBS. And I think talking about them all makes me realise how interlinked they all are. You know, we've tried to separate them out, but actually there are so many overlaps in all the components, because really it is a framework, isn't it, about how we best support our young people. So, but you do need all 12 components to actually be saying that you're using PBS approaches.
Yeah.